Hey, hello everybody. My name is Carlos Chuchuca Pardo, and today I'm gonna talk about a very interesting topic. It is sign language, verbal and nonverbal communication. Of course, the difference between these two, and also about paralanguage and paralinguistics. So, we have two types of communication: the verbal and the nonverbal. Basically, the verbal is the one that occurs when you speak. It implies the use of your mouth, basically. The nonverbal is all the things that doesn't imply your mouth. For example, your body gestures, your eyes contact, among others. Okay, so it's important to notice that almost or about 90% of the communication is nonverbal. There are some gestures and speech, of course, cannot be substituted for each others. They go together, you know. When you are talking, for example, in this moment, what I am doing is like trying to explain this topic, and I have my proper movements, facial expressions, and things like that. Basically, all human communications consist on both, as I said before. The power of gestures can be very different. For example, when you want to show your expressions and feelings when you are talking, okay? For example, you are talking about a sad thing and you can start like your face is like trying to cry and things like that, okay? So, it's important to know also that the social interaction usually involve a conjunction of verbal and non-verbal aspects. And of course, the speech doesn't occur on isolation. Well, there is an exception, or there are some exceptions. For example, when you are doing a phone call, the dancers, and even with patients like mental patients, they have problems that they are trying to talk on, speak on. So there are some gestures and speech. The gestures, speech, the poses or intonation are important when you are talking because, for example, if your voice goes loud or if your voice goes quiet, it's important the pitch and the volume of speaking words. Okay? And of course, the body language as paralanguage, it's important to notice that we can find physical elements, like for example, facial expressions, gesture, postures, and of course, as I said before, eye contact. Okay, body language and gesture were thought to represent a natural language because you are moving when you're talking, you're trying to smile when you're talking, and things like that. Okay, so basically, gesture and speech. There is also a language of hands, body, and facial expressions. And it's important to notice that this is universal, okay? For people that are not available to talk, or even if you don't want to talk, you can use your hands and they are going to speak for us, okay? On behalf of us. So, for example, you can make some signs, like, for example, yes, okay, or no, please, peace and love, among others, so they can talk for us. You can say hello, you can say come, and yeah, things like that. So, the nonverbal communication, the elements or the components are the body language, as I said before, the body posture, how you are stand up, and the gestures that you do, the facial expressions, your eye contact, if you smile or not, the personal space, the proximity between two people, the kinesthetic, the touch, if you are touching, for example, when you say, have a nice day or good luck in your exam, you keep or you try to touch the shoulder especially, okay? And there are some prosodic elements of paralinguistic that are used or are very important in this case, like for example intonation, the tone of voice, the volume, among others. In the nonverbal communication we have some elements: the kinetic the body movements, the physical space, especially the proxemics. It conveys important message, okay, like happiness, contrition, sadness, the kinesthetic touching, and the eye contact, as I said before. The kinesis. Basically, this is a science or a type of science that studies the movements of body, gestures, and facial expressions. Okay? Basically, kinesis gave rise to some interesting facts that tell us that 90% of our communication is nonverbal. That's a very important fact, and you have to notice. We have to notice that fact. Paralanguage. What is paralanguage? Paralanguage is a body language. And what is this body language about? Movements and gestures that speakers usually produce during speech acts. These are very different from one place in the world to another. And take into account, like for example, we have this picture here. When you are worried, basically, for example, with me in Ecuador, I do like, what do I have to do? Or when I'm happy, yes, yeah. But some people in other parts of the world, they don't use the same, you know. And the facial expressions, it's also important facial expressions. Why? Because basically every culture has its own expressions, facial expressions. American people is more expressive than Asian people. And you have seen that maybe in movies, maybe in magazines or things like that, because they are very different. They differ from the people from the States, for example, or people from Japan. Okay, but it's important to notice that some expression, facial expressions, are common in over the world. Like for example, surprise and things like that. The eye contact. Eye contact is like an important topic. Why? Because, for example, in Ecuador, when you make eye contact, you show respect and you show that you are paying attention. And for me, it's like a polite thing or a polite gesture. But if you go to Qatar, if you go to the Saudi Arabia, you can do that, especially with women. Women. Why? Because they are not allowed to see you or to have eye contact. Okay? And of course, paralanguage and paralinguistics. Uh, Coming back. Yes, yes. Just a while. It's important to notice that the difference between the verbal communications and the non-verbal communication is that the verbal communication express our words from our mouth, and the non-verbal communication use the gestures, the hands, the body movements to express. Okay? And it's not necessary, like for example, to use your voice when you're doing your nonverbal communication. What is that? And I didn't say anything. The paralanguage. It's important to notice that there is a big difference between paralanguage and paralinguistic. Paralanguage is a non-verbal way of communication that accompanies speech and contributes to the nuances of the meaning. It conveys emotions of the message, basically. If you're happy, if you're not happy, you are sad. The way how you say words, the body language. It's very different to say be quiet, like to be quiet. So there is a big difference, and that's power language. Okay, and of course, it can be conscious or unconscious and learned. There are some elements, as I said before, and I just practice in this moment: intonation, pitch, tone, voice volume, body language, expressions, eye contact, and among others. And paralinguistics, on the other hand, is the study of paralanguage. Paralinguistic is very important in human communication because they may change message completely. Its role for cross-cultural communication is very significant. It is vocal communication that is separate from actual language, okay? It gives shades of meaning. For example, your tone of voice, it's not the same thing like to say, congratulations, bro, like to say, congratulations. Maybe you are using sarcasm, and that's important, okay? So, and finally, the paralinguistics is the study of the role of nonverbal clues for communication. And that's all for today. I hope you liked my video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.